What is going on, bros? Welcome to the show. I am T Shroom. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got some pretty big news here. We've got another purchase from MicroStrategies. Yes, that's right. Michael Saylor over at MicroStrategies is saying, let's buy some more Bitcoin. They've bought another $37 million worth of Bitcoin. The Bitcoin holdings are now $8.1 billion. Check this out, guys. MicroStrategy, the leading public Bitcoin holder, continues its bullish stance, acquiring another 850 Bitcoin in January, bringing its total to 190,000 worth, a staggering 8.1 billion. Now, during their Q4 2023 earnings call, CFO Andrew Kang revealed that the company purchased 56,650 Bitcoin through 2023, an average price of 33,580. Not a bad entry. Let me know in the chat. Do you have a better average entry into Bitcoin, or have you waited? Have you waited to buy Bitcoin? My average entry is still better than MicroStrategy's, and it probably will be continuing into the future. But despite a revenue decline of 6.1% to 124.5 million, MicroStrategy posted a net income of 89.1 million compared to a previous year's loss. Executive Chairman, maybe you've heard of him, Michael Saylor, attributed the improvement performance to investors recognizing Bitcoin's role in the digital transformation of assets. He boldly claims 2024 marks the birth of Bitcoin as an institutional-grade asset class, even calling it the first new asset class of the modern era. So there's a lot in there to unpack. There's a lot to talk about. But one thing I want to say is that, with this whole Solana situation that happened yesterday, there was a lot of bashing in the crypto community, a lot of bashing of Wall Street, right, and VCs, and corporate holders of Bitcoin, right? So Michael Saylor represents kind of Wall Street, I'd say, more than he does crypto, right? He understands the deep value of Bitcoin specifically, but I don't think he sees crypto as all that valuable. And of course, I take a different position on that than he does. But it is really, really interesting to think about this because Michael Saylor is saying that this is a good thing, right? That this is the birth of Bitcoin as an institutional grade asset. And of course, we've always known that in Bitcoin, in crypto, that Bitcoin will have to be at some point bought up by institutions. That's one of the things that we've pined for, that we've longed for to pump our Bitcoin bags, right? And so that big money institutions get into Bitcoin, that's going to make the price go up. I don't think a lot of people were really thinking that they would do that through an ETF, right? So that's where a lot of crypto purists, decentralized purists, trying to look at this ETF situation and say, well, I don't know. It seems fishy. It seems like BlackRock and Fidelity are kind of getting a lot of leverage here, and especially if you run out the clock, they could be looking at a very large portion of ownership for this new digital gold, which is Bitcoin. But it's the remarks here of Michael Saylor that kind of help us to remember that this may not be so bad, and this is probably the compromise that was always going to have to be made. And Satoshi may or may not have even envisioned this, may have even thought of this happening as he was creating all of the magical alien technology that went into Bitcoin, right? So that's just one thing that I wanted to point out to you today. But the question is, will he, Michael Saylor, be richer than Elon Musk? And we're going to dive into an article here that actually takes us into that tale and tries to help us figure out if that is even possible, what it's going to take, and can it happen. But before we do that, let's go ahead and check out the charts here. I'm going to start on Bitcoin. As you can see, it's kind of trying to get back above this downtrending line of resistance, trying to break above that. That would put Bitcoin above 43,003, which would be really nice. It would be really nice to see the breakout now. But unfortunately, we're probably just going to get more sideways action, even if we get, and this is my humble prediction, even if we get a breakout to the upside or the downside, I just don't see Bitcoin going too far, too fast, this far from the halving, right? We still have a few months until we're there, until we're at the halving, right? And of course, that date is actually not specifically known. Tim and I found that out the other day, trying to look around at the different websites. We thought it was going to be April 12th. All of the different calculation websites trying to figure out where the halving is going to be, they were all saying April 12th. Well, fast forward to last week, and you look it up, and it's not. It's like some of them are in late May, some of them are in super early April. So we don't really know. But that is going to be a very, very big gravitational moment for Bitcoin's price to move up. I do believe there'll be price ascension leading up to that event, and that the event itself will probably not. I don't think it's going to be a sell the news. I think it's probably going to be sideways or up the news. So that's kind of my thinking there for the Bitcoin halving. But going back to the charts, we put in this high back here, albeit a wick at 49,000, didn't get up above 50, at least here on the Coinbase chart. So I think that really is kind of going to be the next level. From here, I don't see, and I know I've got this Fibonacci drawn here, I don't see Bitcoin really going too much further to the downside here. I know Tim has kind of been talking about that being the case. I'm definitely not going to rule it out, right? But I just don't see it going lower, right? Just because I do see so much buying pressure here. This is ultimately where Bitcoin had to stop, turn around, right? Because there were no more sellers. There were only buyers down here. And I would even argue that this spike lower was an anomaly, right? Whales kind of trying their luck, seeing how how much they can wait to buy and see how low it would go. It didn't go that much lower from this buy zone here. It really only went about 2.5% lower. And you could even argue that you could make that same argument here. Again, from a trading psychology standpoint, not so much technical analysis, that there were actually plenty of buyers all through here, all through this zone. They were just waiting, right? They knew they wanted to buy, but they were like, yeah, but if I can get it 4% cheaper, let's wait it out. So all that translates to T-Shroom does not think that Bitcoin is going to go much lower. I don't think that we see a sub 38.5 Bitcoin. I don't think we're going to see that short of an event. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just giving you my take. You've tuned into this YouTube channel to get my take. There it is. Love it or hate it. That's okay. Now, that's good for the bulls. But what I'll say is we're still sitting on our hands. I don't think we're going up and to the right very quickly anytime soon. I think it's going to be here before you know it if you're patient, right? Because the halving's not that far away, right? So just be patient, wait it out. Let's take a look at Ethereum. Right, that is kind of the mantra. Bitcoin, we all know, like, and trust. It's going to go up and to the right with this big halving event, right? And through 2024, as people become educated on it, but just got to be patient and go look for opportunity in the altcoins, right? That is kind of the mantra here. That is something that is kind of the pattern again and again that we've been cycling through. I do have some news, guys. We're going to look at how it would be possible for Michael Saylor to be the first trillionaire and actually get more wealthy than Elon Musk. We're going to take a look at that in just a second. But right now we're cruising through, getting an update on, honestly, kind of a snooze fest here in the crypto markets. I do have some news that's not as snoozy, but let's keep moving here. So Ethereum has gone back up and tested the upper band, this downtrending line of now resistance, and was not able to flip it as support back here on February 6th, right? It just wasn't able to do it. And so today we're trying to make another run up at it. I'm here on the 4-hour chart. If we can get a close, let me extend this line out. If we can get a close above 2,380, that would be bullish. If we can get a candle close above that, that would be bullish for the king of altcoins, Ethereum, but it is yet to be seen. So far, we've rejected that. The last time, we did not reject that resistance back in January 10th, but that ultimately did resolve with closes lower back below that resistance, right? So that's what we're waiting for, is a break back through that resistance, because right now, if you zoom out, let's actually go out to the weekly chart. The market, what is the market really telling us with this chart? The same thing that it's telling us about Bitcoin is this is the price of Ethereum. right? In this zone. This is how much one Ethereum is worth to the market. People are buying homes, they're buying new cars, they're buying groceries, they're putting their kids through private school, whatever it is. They've got all this money. Some of it's disposable, some of it's not. The market as a whole, all of those people, all those decision makers are looking at the asset called Ethereum and they're saying, yeah, based on all my other expenses and all my other investments, Ethereum is worth about 2,300. But that's going to change, and I've got some news here coming up that's going to show you exactly why. But right now, this is the price for Ethereum, right? This is what the market values it at. Now, if you're buying it today, right, that means you're basically saying either you're trying to preserve wealth, which Ethereum, I don't know, is going to be the best way to preserve wealth. I think there's much better assets than that, Bitcoin. But if you're buying today, you're basically saying the market's wrong, right? You're basically saying the market is valuing Ethereum down here. It should be up here. It should be double that, right? And that's what we're doing here. That's why we're here, right? I'm just trying to help remind folks of the basics here. Give a little bit to the noobs and a little bit of a reminder, a refresher to the traders, to the seasoned among us. Let's take a look at Matic here. This was one that last week I was predicting was going to have a breakout. It was going to be the next breakout after Chainlink has continued to outperform the market. And it didn't break out. But that's okay. Let's go down to the 4-hour and get a real good look here at Polygon. And this will be the last altcoin, unless we have time at the end, that I'm going to take a look at. We're going to take a look at this. We're going to go to the chat, and then we're going to continue with our show here. But the good news is that Polygon here is putting in higher lows, right? But it's also put in a lower high here. So what does that mean? Just like everything else, it's consolidating, right? Just like pretty much everything else, I should say. Maybe not Miro. Oops. So, there's definitely a lot of upside for Polygon. I mistimed it. I thought that this was going to break out because it's so underbought. It's so underbought on the monthly. If you look at the monthly chart and you look at its proximity to the Bollinger Band, it's one of the only top 50 cryptos that's actually below the midline of the Bollinger Band on the monthly chart. So it sucks. It sucks. But, I do think this is opportunity, right? It sucks for people who've been holding Matic because they're kind of sitting there like, oh, man, is this thing, there's a lot of layer 2 competitions now. There's a lot of interest in the AI coins and the gaming coins. Are people going to come back and buy the layer 2s? I think they will. I think it won't be as exciting as last cycle. I think that the gains for Matic will be somewhat, pulled back in. However, I still think that Matic does very well. It's a known name. Folks that are coming back for the bull market who aren't yet paying attention, they're going to remember that name. And they're going to buy in to try to make a quick buck. And can you blame them? I don't think you can blame them. Let's see who the first chat was. It was Nancy Croy. Nancy Croy also was the first chat of 2024, so you got to give it up for Nancy. A mellow fellow said he's definitely not the first trillionaire. That's true. Currently, nobody is the first trillionaire. That does not exist. There is nobody who is currently at a net worth of 1 trillion. There are companies that are, right? Apple, Microsoft, there's companies that are worth $1 trillion. And of course, there's governments. I mean, if you count their debt, they're not worth $1 trillion. But the land that they rule, it's a little different. It's not really quite ownership. Servando Estrada, Eric Wallen, Pokemon Gains, A Kid Coleman, Army Piper in the chat. Let's go. Brian D saying good morning. And then Piper Academy. Oh, man, we're getting the double dip. We're getting both accounts from old Piper. I love it. Brian D, French Toaster, Overcome 70 times 7. Why would you buy with $1 trillion? Oh, what would you buy with $1 trillion? Ooh, that's a fun question. Oh, man. I don't know. I think $1 trillion, you could start getting creative, right? I might buy a giant LCD LCD satellite that could just kind of float and kind of orbit the moon, perhaps. And the LCD screen would have you could rent that screen, right, as an advertiser. And if you're Budweiser or you're Investing Bros, whatever, you could rent that screen and be a way to make a little money and also be the first thing. And then when the aliens come to Earth, you could also you could rent it out to NASA and scientists and say, hey, try to communicate with the aliens through this billboard before our imminent doom. So that's one way that you could spend $1 trillion. That would probably cost you a couple $100 billion, I would imagine. There's a lot of other things you could do. You could try to end world poverty, right? Or you could build a giant LCD that orbits the moon. All right, let's keep moving here, guys. Let's go ahead and jump into our cover story here because I know you're excited. We are all living vicariously through Michael Saylor, right? Michael Saylor could potentially be, if things go the way that I think they're going to go and that much of the Bitcoin community thinks they're going to go, Michael Saylor could potentially be known as the best investor ever, right? The best investor to ever walk the earth. Currently, you'd have to say probably Warren Buffett is up there, maybe, and Andreessen Horowitz is up there in the VC side. But there's definitely a lot of great investors. Michael Saylor may be known as the greatest investor. It just all depends on the price movement for Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin's price has appreciated on average by less than 0.5% each day over the past 10 years. Now, what I should say is that this article is actually quite dated. So this is from 2001, but it purports how Bitcoin makes Michael Saylor the world's first trillionaire in 2025, right? So we're kind of getting the luxury of fast forwarding into the future and saying what we see, right? And actually getting to be in the future and kind of looking at things through the eyes of someone from the past. Bitcoin's price has appreciated, right, at the time of this writing, by less than 0.5% each day over the past 10 years. Of course, predicting price movements with this metric isn't perfect. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Where have we heard that before? However, it's appropriate for this clickbait. Well stated. Two things occur by August 26, 2024. That's this year, guys. That's this year. When using these formulae. Okay, the plural of formula. I didn't know that. Number one, Bitcoin's price has to swell to $728,600. So let's go to the chart. Let's take a look at that, where that would put Bitcoin. Let's see what kind of a percentage gain. Let's go to the one. Turn off this Fibonacci real quickly. So zooming out, let's see, 700,000. That would be quite high here. I'm going to have to zoom out quite a bit. Oh, wow. Man, this would be crazy. What did it say? 780? 728,000. All right, so let's go down here. 728,000 would be, boom, right around there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the cursor exactly on. Let's do there. So not quite exactly, but it's pretty close. That would be a 1,500% increase. Okay, so that would be pretty incredible. And look, Kathy Woods thinks that Bitcoin could get to, I believe, 1.5 million by 2030. So that's not this cycle necessarily, but by 2030. And then there's a lot of folks who are putting the Bitcoin price prediction somewhere in this area. I'm seeing a lot more 600,000. 728 is not a prediction that I've been seeing a lot specifically, but I'm sure there's a lot for 75,000. But most people's predictions are actually down here at 150,000. Okay, so that's the first thing that has to happen in order for Michael Saylor to be the first trillionaire. Then MicroStrategy's Bitcoin stash has to reach 5,135,544, which would equal 3.74 trillion. Now you might be saying, but T-Shroom, if it's worth 3.74 trillion, that means he's a 3 trillionaire. No, because he only owns a portion of MicroStrategy's. I believe he only owns 26%, right? But he owns 70% of the governance shares. So if we take a look here, you can see that even with the purchase this morning, let's see, it actually quoted it in real time. So let's go to the real time one. Okay, so this is up to date. Cool. I was worried that this one was not up to date. So MicroStrategy currently owns just under 200,000 Bitcoin, which is very different from this number here. Okay, so they're going to have to keep buying a lot, and this would probably be the one that would knock this prediction out, right? And then at that point, Saylor's personal wealth would exceed $1 trillion, right? So that is the formula. That's what's going to happen here. Now they could in order for them to not have to acquire this much Bitcoin, they could go ahead and, have the price would have to go up for Bitcoin up to that 1.5 million mark, probably, right? Somewhere around there. And then they could get away with not acquiring as much. But let's read on. Let's see what else this has to say. On this date, MicroStrategy would itself boast 3.8 trillion in market cap, most of it still Bitcoin. It would likely be the largest publicly listed company in the world, although Apple is already close with 2.64 trillion today. Saylor's stake in MicroStrategy, if left unchanged, would hit an enormous $916 billion. So that would be pretty big. And this is what it would look like on a chart, it looks like. So his personal assets, yachts included, personal assets projected. So that MicroStrategy is in blue, which similar to Elon Musk. Oh, you can't see that, sorry. Similar to Elon Musk, the majority of his wealth is in companies. It's definitely not in cash, but it's also not in just Bitcoin straight up. So that's something to remember as well. Although Michael Saylor is one of the largest holders of Bitcoin. So while we've got the list here, I figured I might as well bring it to your attention. There are other major companies that own Bitcoin, and the biggest one is Marathon Digital, right after MicroStrategies, which look at the next biggest holder, only 15,000, just under 16,000 Bitcoin. And then Tesla owns just under 10,000. Hut 8, which is another miner, owns 9,000. Coinbase 9, Galaxy Digital 8, Block 8, Riot, another miner 7, on down the line. CleanSpark 3.5. You get the idea. Now, what'll be really interesting to see is when the BlackRock and the Fidelity ETFs. Excuse me, I had to sneeze there. You're welcome for me muting that because that would have been really loud on your little cochleatic hairs there. But what will be interesting to see is how quickly the spot Bitcoin ETFs can climb this rank, because that will be super interesting. All right, guys. Well, that is essentially what has to happen. Let me know. Do you think that this is possible? Will Michael Saylor be the world's first trillionaire or not? There is definitely a good chance that MicroStrategies will not be able to acquire that much Bitcoin. I mean, that is a high number compared to what it has now, and that is after a lot of buying at low levels. It would have to, I mean, I don't even know what the multiple of that would be, but that is a lot more Bitcoin to have to buy, right? And then Bitcoin does have to get up and surpass a lot of very, very sophisticated predictions. So, possible? Absolutely, right? Because Bitcoin could just pop on up to $1 million per share. If something bad happens in the world, Bitcoin will quickly become an alternative, and that's why we have it as the plan B in a lot of sense. But ultimately, there's got to be a lot more to happen. One more thing I wanted to show you, just going to indulge here, which is the current largest corporations. I know you didn't ask for it, but here it is. Microsoft currently tops the world as a $3 trillion company. Right now, this was first done by Apple. Apple did achieve that $3 trillion status first, but they've been spending some money on making some ocular wear that maybe you've been seeing some thumbnails for, and perhaps you even clicked and watched a video about. Saudi Aramco in third here at $2 trillion, and then Alphabet just under $2 trillion. So those are the companies, and I don't think any of those top ones have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. But which of these top 4 companies had the Bitcoin white paper embedded in a piece of their software? Let me know in the chat which one was it. I'd love to know if you know. All right, let's keep moving here. Because we do have some stories here and not a lot of time to cover them. U.S. Congress challenges Yellen on crypto regulation, seeks clarity on how he tests roll. So this is actually something that I agree with pretty strongly. There was a letter written to Yellen. The letter was backed by key figures, including House Financial Services Committee Chair Patrick McHenry, a name we all know and love as an advocate for Bitcoin, House Agriculture Committee Chair Glenn Thompson, and Representatives French Hill and Dusty Johnson. I like that name, Dusty Johnson. They are seeking a comprehensive explanation from Yellen on how she envisions the regulatory landscape for digital assets. The congressman specifically asked for clarification on the role of the Securities and Exchange Commission and the effectiveness of the Howey test. Could you imagine what this would be for crypto if the Howey test could go ahead and get dissolved or reformed? I mean, the Howey test was originally written for it was case precedent for an orange orchard of all things. And so how the SEC was actually classifying securities all throughout this time since that decision has been based on an orange orchard, I believe it was. Right? So it definitely, there's a strong argument for that being updated a little bit there, Congress. Let's read on. This test is crucial for determining whether a transaction qualifies as an investment contract and therefore a security. They voiced concerns that the SEC's current approach, which relies heavily on the Howey test, may not offer sufficient protection for investors. So here's the storyline here, guys. We covered it yesterday on the 3 p.m. show. Janet Yellen comes out and says, hey, Congress, we need you to pass comprehensive crypto reform, crypto regulation, kind of like what Europe did with MiCA. Okay, Europe, far and away, the most, in my opinion, most established, regulatory body that has passed crypto regulation. Maybe not the best crypto regulation. I think the best is in Dubai, right? Is in the UAE. But here in the United States, we have very little. We don't even have a MiCA. There's not a lot of regulatory clarity. When that becomes clear, then that will be better. So Janet Yellen asking for some clarity here, which, you could make an argument that could be bullish for crypto. But we probably don't want that to be crafted under the Biden administration, I would say, because Biden, say what you will about him, but his administration at least has not been very kind to crypto, and there's a lot of reasons for that I could get into, but not for this episode. It would probably be better if crypto regulation was crafted and passed under a different administration. And to be honest with you, I don't know that it would matter if it was Democrat or Republican, just different, right? Because there's plenty of Democrats, RFK, who are actually very pro-Bitcoin. So moving on. So what's going to happen here is a bunch of pro-crypto elected officials in Congress and the Senate said, hey, Yellen, we need you to go ahead. And apparently it's under her jurisdiction, that the Treasury, we need you to have your agency, the SEC, redefine the Howey test, redefine the test for determining whether something is a security or not. Well, some things I like to do here, ways do I like to report things, is just by showing you all the results of a Google search. Because there's a lot of ways to cover stories. But NYCB, Moody's downgrading NYCB. This is another kind of tick, another note here, another movement in the narrative of American regional banks suffering, right? So this is the NYCB, the New York Community Bank, and I'll read you some of these headlines. NYCB, stock is up despite more bad news. Moody's cuts NYCB to junk, extending sharp declines in shares. So a contradiction there. This one from 12 hours ago from Wall Street. This Wall Street Journal, this one from an hour ago from Barron's, which I don't know why they were trying to get a price quote an hour ago, an hour before the market opened, which right now the market is opening. So maybe we'll go look at NYCB. Yahoo Finance reporting it as troubled lender. NYCB seeks to reassure investors about 60% slide in stock. Let's see. Cointelegraph covering it, saying Bitcoin price to 1 million. Bitcoin bulls dare to dream as New York City Bank, New York Community Bank hits 1990s levels. All right, now we got to look at the chart. I am too curious now. NYCB stocks, New York Community Bank core. Oh, is this today? No, this is the monthly chart. Let's go to the 4-hour. Okay, so it doesn't look too bad, to be honest with you. It looks like, because this wouldn't be the open. The current 4-hour candlestick is green. When I say this doesn't look too bad, I mean by the minute, right? At the market open is green, but this is very bad. Look at this gap. That's a thick boy. That is 40% to the downside, current trading at 60% to the downside. Not good. not good. Not quite as big as Evergrande, right? Going down, but this is big. It's bad. I've got a couple more headlines. CoinDesk running a headline saying, "Can we all stop pretending that Solana is in beta?" I don't have time to comment on that. SEC delays another ETF, Ether ETF application. That's just news. Boom. Good thing to know about. May 23rd is the date that is actually going to be the final deadline that is relevant here. Right there. Boom, boom. That's the one to pay attention to. Whales grab 50 million of Chainlink's as price climbs 40% in a month. So, surprise, what was pushing Chainlink's price higher? A bunch of people with a bunch of money. Who would have ever thought that they were buying it? Ethereum's Dankun upgrade reaches final Holsky testnet, starting countdown to data blops. All right. Well, folks, thank you so much for listening. Today we'll be joined by a special guest at 3 p.m. It's actually a representative from a very big mining company, a mining company that is trying to bring mining back to retail, back to you, back to me. And I got to tell you, it looks pretty sweet. It looks like something I may want to actually go ahead and invest in. So make sure you tune in at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Investing Bros. And if you're not subscribed, I don't know. You might be a lost cause at this point. No, just kidding. Make sure you smash the subscribe button, hit the like button on the way out, and turn on that notification bell. I have been T-Shroom, and I will continue to be T-Shroom. Stay hydrated, keep your stop losses tight, and we'll see you at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor of the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shroom's news got the word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots, stack bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.